Hey there! Thanks for taking the time. I'm Stacy Nonamaker, and this is a Supporter's Toolbox. I want to talk about a longitudinal study I read recently. It was conducted by a psychology professor from Stanford University by the name of Lewis Terman. You see, Terman was interested in IQ testing and tracking the lives of people who were considered to be geniuses. I was most drawn to the study because he tapped into something that I've always been interested in, the concept of practical intelligence. So we tend to use words like street smarts or common sense, and those words can capture the concept of practical intelligence, which is essentially the notion that success is more academically focused problems do not necessarily translate to success in solving real-world practical problems and vice versa. But back to Terman's study. What he did was interview and follow about 1,500 kids from all over the U.S. with exceptionally high IQs. Terman did this because he believed that IQ was the most important attribute to being successful. He hypothesized that when these kiddos grew up, they would become great and successful. As a culture, we often speak of geniuses as though they're an outlier, not the norm, and that if you are possessed with extraordinary intelligence, of course you will achieve great things. But, as it turned out, Terman was wrong about the relationship between genius and success. He learned, for example, that you may be smart enough, but not creative enough, to achieve the highest level of success. His child geniuses did not turn out the way he thought they would. In fact, many were successful, but many were not. Most led normal middle-class lives, and none of them became famous for anything. In fact, 2 children he had initially rejected because their IQs were too low actually went on to win Nobel Prizes. The lesson learned here is that to say a person is a genius doesn't tell us very much, and that we have to know more about them and what else it takes for someone to achieve the highest level of success, this practical intelligence. The children in Terman's study who failed to put their intelligence to work for them squandered their talent, as some would say, meaning that something limited their success. Finding out for each kid what that was is another story. In fact, the difference between the most successful group and the least successful group in Terman's study was class. Kids raised in lower-class families, even if they were geniuses, lacked the necessary skills to make a name for themselves. But exactly what was that? So in the work we do, it isn't necessarily about class. Sure, sometimes it is. But to me, the lesson we can learn here is that sometimes it is about opportunity and expectations. Important pathways to bolstering competence and confidence. If you are not born with practical intelligence, and if you don't learn it in school, then how the heck do you gain more of it? Let's talk about some easy ways to do that. You can get more practical intelligence by learning from your experiences, and as I have said before, especially your mistakes, and even experiencing the mistakes of others. Building practical intelligence is exploring your own strengths and weaknesses, trying different ways to do things, and building on what you know works or what doesn't work. More specifically, challenge the people you support by exposing them to situations and activities that require them to problem solve, like computer coding, escape rooms, building things, and even playing video games. These all require a process of trial and error, of thinking through what will work and not work, and knowing what you can do and not do. Talk to the person about their thought process before, during, and after these things, asking why they decided to do what they did or what they are planning on doing. Encourage them to self-assess and determine if what they did was the right thing and perhaps what they would have done differently. And give authentic feedback on what you thought about what they did. Why you thought it wasn't the best idea that they made a replica of their apartment building using only blue Legos. Encourage people to try new things and find ways to set up those opportunities. As I have said before, there is something about stepping outside the comfortable box, the box in which you do the same thing in the same way every time. You know the type, the one who has the same routine every day or eats the same thing for each meal. The person who just doesn't really challenge their mental abilities, like when they're in situations that may feel uncomfortable. That period of discomfort is when practical intelligence grows and thrives. So, there's more to success than a high IQ, despite what Termaine thought. Practical intelligence is where it's at and where most of the people we support will thrive. In that real world, day-to-day stuff. Again, thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy. Hoping you took one thing away that can make today a better day for the person you support. Bye now.